My name is Apurva Kothari. I'm the founder of No Nasties. We've been running this for about 8 years right now. We started this in Bombay as a t-shirt brand, but we moved over to Goa about the last 5 years. My personal story is that I was a typical Indian engineering boy. Did my bachelor's here, went to the US for my master's, studied there, worked there for 12 years, but reached a point in my life where I didn't know why I was working and why I was doing what I was doing. I didn't find any purpose behind it. At the same time, I came across the issue of cotton farmer suicides in India, which shocked me quite a bit because it's happening like an overnight train ride away from where I grew up in Bombay. And it was happening in Maharashtra, it was happening in Gujarat, it was happening all over the country. And the numbers were really disturbing, but not many people back home in India knew about it. And I was quite shocked that not much was being done about it. The number of farmer suicides is over 300,000, one every half an hour. It's the largest number of suicides in human history, and it's happening in our country. So we wanted to try and fix that. So we slowly drafted a plan to come back to India to see why this was happening, talk to the farmer groups and see what could be done about it. And the idea of No Nasties came along, where we said we are going to create more consumer awareness for the problem by way of our clothing. So No Nasties makes organic, fair trade, vegan cotton clothing. Everything is sourced from one farmer's co-op, goes to one fair trade factory and comes to us. It's just a way of creating a social, environmental awareness, but disguised as a fashion brand. I've lived across the world in many big cities. Finally got really tired of them. When I started No Nasties, it was back in Bombay in 2011. I'd just come back from the US after staying there for 12 years and I couldn't handle it. The work pressures, the stress, daily stress, traffic noise, all the things, the typical things we complain about, but really got to me. I used to wake up with anxiety up here and I wanted to get away. And I was looking around the country to see where I could live, which was still accessible to the main cities, good place to work, and I could only think of Pondicherry or Goa. And Goa seemed a lot closer and more connected to Bombay, where I was from. We actually run two organizations. I've started No Nasties and also an NGO called Once Upon a Dog. And the sourcing and the connection with the farmers is different in both. For No Nasties, for our cotton clothing, we work with the farmers cooperative, and most of the cotton is grown in Orissa. And from there it goes to a factory in Calcutta and it comes to us. So it's mostly on the East Coast because that's the type of cotton we need as well. For the Once Upon a Dog project, we're working with an NGO in Wardha, which is in the Vidarbha Akola region, interiors of Maharashtra. And there we have a more direct connect with the realities on the ground as well. It's really interesting to see how your personality changes and your pace of life affects your mood as well. I still work the same number of hours, still doing the same kind of work I was doing in Bombay, but I'm just more relaxed now. We don't even have a 10-minute commute, access to beaches. If you're having a tough day, nothing beats it like going for a sunset swim. Food is great, and the community around here is also really fantastic. A lot more relevant conversations around sustainability and consciousness, which you find in Bombay, but you have to really seek it out. It's still a very capitalistic city and it's driven by money. I think Goa allows you to be in that space very easily. The conversations are very different. So for me, after being in the big cities for all my life, I think I just reached a point where I was wanting and desperately seeking out something more peaceful. Goa is no stranger to visitors from outside. From the 60s and 70s, when the hippie movement took off here, we've seen that influx of folks. They haven't been as used to an Indian influx. And I feel like living in this community here, there are almost three groups of people. There's the local Goans, then there's Indian Goans like us, who've established a home here and are part of the community, but not native. And then there's all the foreigners who are also living in Goa, but there's a different kind of social structure and boundaries around those guys as well. Plus, of course, the tourist population which comes and goes all the time. I'd say there is some amount of underlying tension and friction between all three groups. Not that everyone doesn't want to get along well, but I think culturally we are different as well. The locals, absolute native locals of Goa, are not always as affluent when they're seeing their neighborhoods change. You take where we are sitting in Asagaon, one of the prettiest neighborhoods. Just the last year, the number of projects of luxury villas and boutiques and stores like ours have just grown multifold. Having said that, there's a group of people who are just taking over land and redeveloping it to make it look like a city. Whereas I think there's folks like ourselves who want to restore and maintain the beauty of the place. I might be saying I blend in terms of business, so we want to actually preserve this space and try and assimilate in the community as well. The Goa we had moved to even 5 years ago isn't the same. Just the last 12 months we're seeing a massive shift in construction and the influx of folks from Bombay and Delhi mostly. And they're bringing in new wealth, new attitudes. We're really pleased to be here as of now. I don't know how much longer it has before it's overrun by outsiders and it loses its Goa charm. For many people who came before us, they feel like it's already lost its charm. But everyone is shocked at how quickly it's changing, how neighborhoods like Anjana, Vagator, Asagaon have changed in one season. There's shopping malls and stuff everywhere. Now that you drive past the open fields, there's construction in almost every other one. So we don't know how much longer it has. So as of now, we are happy. My outlook is that we have another 3 or 4 years shelf life in Goa before we all start looking for the next place. And we don't know where that is. I think the question of whether this is the right place or not for a business is secondary to us. The first question is this the right place for us to live our lives? Being a small niche brand which is not chasing the big money, but doing things which are purposeful and we are passionate about. We make just enough money to have a comfy life. I don't know if I could have the same life back in Bombay or not. I'd never be able to dream of a house like this in Bombay. So in terms of creating what we want to do as No Nasties, as a sustainable brand, I think we are living our values. And we're demonstrating that this is a good enough place. It might not meet all our greeds, but all our needs. I couldn't complain much about where we are. I think the balance between tourists and locals who engage with us is perfect. We don't want to be in Kandolim or Kalangut where it's only tourists. Being here 5 years, I don't remember which party I've been to, which is an all-night rave which all the tourists come for. I don't go for the big music festivals. In fact, I try to avoid the crowds. For me, I think all of this is Goa. It's not just the inner parts of Goa, which is true Goa or so. At this point, everything is just different aspects of the same place. Me, as well as all my social group, liked our personal space, and we like the access to the beaches and the parties, but we don't necessarily seek that out. At least I'm not doing that. For me personally, it's the quiet space for sure, but the access to nature and the ease of blending into the woods or the fields or the mountains, going to the hills for a walk and stuff is lovely. We don't want any more people in Goa. We are responsible for bringing people in as well. I'm part of the group that has followed and is changing the landscape. If you are considering moving here or moving anywhere, I think most of us are running away from something. And you've got to see, what are you running away from? For me, it was running away from the crazy, hectic life of Bombay. In that sense, Goa does offer a more affordable life. There are fewer job opportunities here. If you're more of a freelancer and can be mobile, that's perfect. But full-time jobs then end up becoming like a normal city life job as well. So come here if you're looking for a lower cost of living, but also easier access to nature. For me, the big thing was I wanted to live in a place which I didn't need a vacation from. So Goa to me is that place. Why spend money on going to a place like this when I can live here? If you're looking for more communities which are conscious, sustainable, or even looking at an arts community or a music community, you'll find that over here. It's a smaller place, it's a smaller village. Those connections are easier to make and you can jump into any group pretty easily. I think the big problems which we see outside, the external problems of garbage and the influx, I see those as easily solvable things. For me, the bigger challenge has been the gaps between the local community and folks like us. There is a Goa versus Indian mentality, which is very shocking and disturbing to me. If I be talking to my neighbors and I say like, hey, you're Indian too, and they'll be like, no, we're Goan. It won't always be on the surface, but if you sit down and have a conversation with some folks, there is that, especially with the previous generation. There's almost some underlying sense of hostility still. I wish that was gone. I love being here and I want to feel like I belong here as well, and I feel like this is one country. So to have that kind of barrier to assimilate is a little tough to swallow. We always wonder where we're going with No Nasties. We've sometimes surprised that we've made it so far for 8 years. I think we're still establishing ourselves as a brand. Not everybody knows about us. The ones who do know love it, but we've got to do more of the same and do it well and do it consistently. For us, the goal isn't to be more of a successful business, but to more be example and lead the way on sustainability and the ethical fashion aspect. So every year we keep on challenging what else we can do. Last year we switched to completely plastic-free packaging. We never use plastics for sending out stuff, but we were using plastic tape, for example. But even that is gone. And we added a No Nasties grow. For every product that you buy, we plant a tree as well. And we want to keep expanding on that realm to see how else can we lead on this front. And I think that's what I define success as. So if you're doing more of that, more people are looking towards No Nasties to say that this is how we should be. It's fantastic. Goa is home. I've lived in many different cities around the world. This is where I feel most at home at. I feel like it allows me to be myself because it gives me that peace. I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm not driven by material greed, and it's allowing me a much nicer connection to nature as well. So for me, I feel settled here. I feel like I belong here as well.